Hi there, I'm Frances and welcome to Love Teaching at Home. This video is all about how to construct a project to work through with your children, and it's about making that project something meaningful, so it's not just a look at a topic, it's properly focused. Your children will learn something from it, they will gain valuable information, valuable knowledge, and it will help them take the next step forwards. Now, a project is generally an investigation into a topic. And at different levels, it means different things. So for younger students, it could be looking at just generally understanding the context. So you might do a project on a different era of history. The Romans and the Greeks, obviously big favourite ones, medieval and the Tudors, etc. There's lots of different topics that you can look at. We're all very familiar from our own school histories. But you can look at it in a general way, and it's just understanding the context. However, when you get older, you can look at project questions that really drill down into a specific difference or a specific issue or a specific question. And that's when topic work becomes really very valuable to your child. But you need to start probably early with the younger children, having them explore a topic first. And then as they mature and demand a deeper interest, that's when the project work changes, so it doesn't remain young. And it's important that your children see that change so that they understand that they're doing a different type of work. So the way that you start is that you need to find a topic that you want to explore. Now, a project answers a question. So for a younger person, where we said it might be an exploration of the lifestyle, it can be an exploration of lifestyle, just of what the era is like. It could be, what is it like to live in the Roman times? Then you could look at the food, you could look at the weather, you could look at the buildings and the army and the political structure of it and all those sorts of things. What would it be like to live there? And that encapsulates all those really nice ideas. However, when you get to the older end of the spectrum, it could turn into, why didn't the Roman Empire survive? Or what were the key strengths of the Roman Empire? Or you could say, how pivotal was the army in the role of how pivotal role did the army play within the Roman Empire in keeping it strong? Or you could compare the empire to the Republic, because at around 0 BC, give or take 50 years, Julius Caesar, I believe, crossed the river Rubicon and declared war on the Roman Empire and turned it from a republic to an empire. So you could look at the two types of ruling and see which one worked best and why one collapsed and one collapsed later. So that's how you can look at the same topic but in different levels. And now there's another video online for you to have a look at, which talks about the quality of the questions that you ask and how the difficulty of the question you set matches or pushes forward, improves the quality of the answer that you get. So we're talking about questions here, but you also should check out the video on questions as well. So the way that you structure your project is that you find your key question that you want to answer, and then you work backwards from that point in time. So if your key question is, let's go with which of the two structures of the Roman civilization was more successful, you could look at breaking it down and saying what were the structures first of all. You could break it down further and say what was it like living there. You could say you could get quite statisticky and compare like the size, like the landmass that they own, the number of countries, the population. You could compare the culture, you could compare the quality of life of people living there, because some people it wouldn't have made any difference, and for some people it probably made quite a bit of difference. So there's lots of ways you can break it down. So you start off with your big final question that you're trying to answer, and on the way between this is your starting point and this is where you want to get to, breaking it down to lots and lots of different questions, and that gives you a bit of a path. Now, what's important to remember is that actually half the fun of a project is discovering where it takes you. So I've actually, at this planning point, is if you actually say, right, my absolute final point is going to be answering this, and I'm going to do exactly these things, you will get a project out of it. But a more fun project could say, okay, so I want to find out which is the better way of living. However, I'm not sure how I'm going to judge it. So first of all, I want to investigate what would we hold as an important point for success. So would we say it's about military success? Would we say it's about size of population? Would we say it's about life expectancy, which I'm sure would be the same because there wasn't much science change in those days? Would we say it's about the number of countries that they own, the number of battles that they won? Was it about monetary success? So you could start off with a bit of an investigation into just quality of life indicators to start you off, and then once you've got a hold of those, then take the next step and work out what that's going to be. So you can plan the whole thing out, as I was previously saying, but actually the most fun part of a project kind of is not knowing where you're going to end up. So you put your own goal, this is where we want to get to, but actually you think all the way back to maybe about here, and you say, right, for the first week I'm just going to do this part of learning. I'm going to work out the answers to these little questions. Once I've got the answers to those little questions, I'm going to work out that the next steps I want to take, and I am aiming for this question still, but I'm going to take a different route for it this way, or I might take it this way. I might look at, I found out that the religion changed, and that was very important. I found out that because the Roman religion was, the pantheon was based on the Greek model, and then in the late 300s, Christianity took over a lot more. So it was a big change in religion. So I've explored that part of the world, and I think that's really important. I'm going to grab hold of that and move forwards. So you may not know exactly the route you want to take from your starting point to your very end point, but you plan backwards a bit and you find a question you can get to within an easy, sensible period of time. And then once you get to that step, you then do the next planning. So that's for a child who is sort of older. So in the planning video, we were talking about someone who's maybe 13 onwards and taking responsibility for their learning. This is a really good way for them to do it, because if they plan too big, the chances that something's going to go wrong, it's going to go wobbly, and they're going to not do as well as they could have done. Whereas if they're taking smaller steps at a time and replanning each route, so every Saturday or Sunday or every Monday morning they sit down and say, right, well, I found this out last week, now I'm going to investigate this. That gives them a lot more success because they've got tighter control over it all. So, as I said, you start with one question and you work backwards. Now, either your question is quite small anyway, so you just deal with that question. So it could simply be, I really want to know, what did the Roman uniforms look like? And there's probably different uniforms for different areas of Rome. I don't know for sure, but it's an investigation, so we'd find out. And so you do that. However, then you would find out that there are probably differences between groups of soldiers made up of farmers and groups of soldiers made up of people from the city. And so that might be your next point of investigation. Or you might find out that there's different uniforms and different clothes for people who are fighting in the north of the Roman Empire up towards Germany, and people fighting down the other side on the north of Africa. And so then you might look into geography. So if you're a small question, instead of the large questions, first we start with a large question that you've broken down. Instead, you might start with just a small question. You say, do you know what? Let's not push ourselves too much, because if we aim too far, we aren't going to get there maybe, because it's quite a long journey. So let's start off with one question first. And then once we've understood that question and we've answered it and we're happy with it, that we'll see what we find out on our journey and what it makes us think about. And to be honest, that might be the end of that journey. You might say, well, do you know what? That was enough Romans for me. Now I want to learn about space. And you might say, oh, I got really into this. I'm really interested now in geography. I might be interested in the different products, the different produce that people would grow around Europe and how that traded across Italy, across the Roman Empire, because all these trade routes were open because everything was owned by the same empire. And so it was a lot easier to get goods to and fro. So you might want to look at the different weather that produced different produce. You might want to look at the sale and how that changed commerce. You might want to look at how that affected Britain and the goods that Britain got access to. There's lots of different ways that could explore. So by taking a small step at a time, you can then explore a greater range of projects. Excellent. So the next thing you need to do is choose a method of collating the learning. So as you go along, and your kids might say, oh, I can remember it all, and they've got a lot better memories than we do, but finding a way to collate the learning as you go along will mean that they can look back and reflect, and if they don't quite remember something, they can go back and check it, it's a very important point. So it could be a notebook that they do writing in. They could keep a bit of a video journal, so they sit down every lunchtime and dinner time and just have a chat for a quarter of an hour about the things that they've learned that time. It could be something that they do online, so it could be a typed notepad that they keep. It could be a little blog. They can upload some photos and some documents, and it's all there for them to go back and have a look through. But collating and tracking the learning, and it's not necessarily for you to track, it's not necessarily for marking, it's purely for the child, for your child to reflect on their learning and to build on it, so they're not relying on their memory. I did a sewing course a few years ago, great fun, and I got a notebook and I sat down, and on the way home, I had a long journey home because it's in central London, so I had to sit on the train on the way home. I made notes every night on my way home on the train about all the points that we'd covered, so that I could remember. And I now use that if I'm doing some sewing at home. I'll get that notebook out and I'll be like, oh, how do I do this? How do I do that? And I've got loads of interesting notes, everything that the teacher said. And in fact, one of the lessons, the teacher had said, oh, have I shown you this? And I've got my notebook out and I looked at it, yes, you did this on this date, and we looked at that. And yeah, she found that really useful actually herself. Bit of a teacher's pet here, I'm not going to lie. I'm a major geek. But collating the information is really important, because it's not your results, not your end results, not maybe the answer to the question, but it does show you the journey you've been on, and you might find those notes useful for something else. So if you're not just using it to answer the one question, but you might want to go back. So we took our path. If you imagine our imaginary project timeline, we had our starting point, you've got to this point, you've branched off over here, you've answered some interesting questions, at which point you think, well, yes, but actually I'd really like to go and explore this other point again. So I'm going to come back to this point and come back out. Now, instead of having to relearn this all from scratch again and do the research again, you can go back to your notebook and look through it. So it just makes sense. But like I said, it doesn't have to be about marking. It doesn't have to be about getting it right. It's just for your child to appreciate and to remember. Super. And then the next thing to consider is the end product. Okay, so the end product that your child is aiming to produce. What will it be that is the product of this project? So options could include a lovely project book. I'm sure we've all seen them, and you put your stick photos in, you cut things out, stick them in, and do your written reports. It could be it could be more like an essay. So if your child, for example, if you've opted out of formal exams, it's still possible to go to colleges, to apprenticeships as well, and into university. Universities actually have, it's always worth asking, because they have a process for mature students who may or may not have had the opportunity, because up until the 80s, university wasn't really accessible to everybody because of the grammar school system. So if you went in a grammar school, you didn't really get the opportunity much to go to a formal university. So there may be people who are in their 50s now who don't have a degree but do have a lot of experience in the field, so whatever their field of industry is, and they now want to go back and do a degree or a master's degree or something. So universities have a process for people who haven't sat exams, and how they can prove themselves worthy to be on the course, basically. So usually it's quite interview based, but you might be asked to produce some work. So if you're collecting for a portfolio for that sort of a situation, you might want to create an essay, you might want to create, if it's something practical, so you might be investigating something very modern. So all my examples so far have been very history, very subject based, but you might want an investigation into like cameras, and your kid might be really interested in becoming a photographer, in which case they want to put together a portfolio of all the different effects and all the different, like the slides they put over the lens. I'm afraid I don't know the technical terms, but they might want to put together a portfolio of all the bits that they've done, and that might be to show an employer, future employer, or a trainer. That could be to set up their own business. So there's lots of, so work out what will be your end product of the project. What do you hope? So it's not just answering that question, it's how are you going to show your answer. It might be that you put together a newsletter, whatever it is that your child's interested in. This is another element of the project, because you've already looked at the topic they're interested in, you've helped them answer a question that they're interested in, but you can also do it using a medium that they enjoy as well. So, if they're really into computers, they could create a computer program about it, or whatever it is that they're doing. There's lots of different ways to express it. So let me just check I've got all my points, got my little list here again. And then the next step is to look at how to take the learning further. So you've completed your project, as I said, you got to this point, you've answered over here, you've answered over there, you've got to the finish point of your project. And the question then becomes, what do we do next? Now, for some people, I might say, well, I never want to see this again. Whatever it was, I've stuck it out, but I never want to see it again. That's really unlikely. They're really likely to say, oh, wow, maybe not exactly on these terms, but I did think this bit was interesting. So I found the bit about Roman food was really interesting. So now I'm quite interested in trying out cooking. They might say, I was really interested in this bit I found out about photography, about the effects of different lights. Now I really want to find out about the physics so I can understand properly how to use my super mega SLR camera. Okay, so whatever it is, it may not be a direct relation to what you've been studying, but they should have a think, and what they've studied in their project should influence them a bit, because they're just filled with new information. So if there's something they find interesting, or maybe not interesting, they want to avoid, but then just to choose the next topic they want to study and move on forwards with that. Now, I've talked like timescale. Sometimes projects can last a month or two. To be honest with most children, you want to keep it down to a week or two, because that's essentially their concentration span. It can be longer, and it depends how spaced out it is. So, to concentrate fully on something for 1 to 2 weeks is probably a maxed out version. If it's something you're going to say, well, we'll do it on a Wednesday afternoon, then that'll probably last a couple of months. So that's how we get our projects done. Excellent. If you've got any questions, post them below and I'll get back to you. Thank you very much. See you soon.